Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Then Jesus told them this parable. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Then he calls his friends and neighbors together and says, "Rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep." I tell you that in the same way there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent. Or suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and loses one. Doesn't she light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it? And when she finds it, she calls her friends and neighbors together and says, "Rejoice with me, I have found my lost coin." In the same way, I tell you, there is rejoicing in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. Jesus continued, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the estate.' So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death? I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. 'Your brother has come,' he replied, 'and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound.' The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, 'Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill a fattened calf for him." "My son," the father said, "you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found."
So as I was preparing for this sermon this week, there was a thought that came to my mind that happened when I was younger, and I had to call my brother to get the story right and ask him to tell the story. He said, "Absolutely, it's a great story." I wasn't involved with it, actually. I wasn't there. My brother had gone with my aunt and uncle, and at that time, there were two cousins. He was like 5, maybe 6. And they went to the Columbus Zoo. And even back then, the Columbus Zoo was big. And so they're at the zoo, and they're looking at things. And my brother gets in his head that, "I'm going to go look at this." And sometimes he'll just go. He won't, even at that age, he wouldn't tell you, he'd just go. And he wanted to look at the bears. I don't know what where they were at, what they were doing, but he wanted to go to the bears. So he went to the bears. Well, then he realized he didn't know where my aunt and uncle were. And he starts freaking out. He starts crying. And fortunately, there were a couple of ladies who worked at the zoo who were there and saw him. And so they took him to an office area where they did that. And they said, "What's your mom's name? What's your mom and dad's name?" He said, "It's Jim and Diane Mahaffey." And so they start going on the loudspeaker, "Jim and Diane Mahaffey, we have your son." Well, as he's still freaking out, a 5, 6-year-old's going to be doing that. Somehow, the person who at that point had just started running the Columbus Zoo, his name is Jack Hanna. Yes, that Jack Hanna that's been on all the shows with all the animals. He came into the office with a monkey. It's a monkey that when kids are lost at the zoo, this monkey goes and just provides a moment of calmness. And here's Jack Hanna with a monkey and my brother, and they are playing together. And the people are still saying, "Jim and Diane Mahaffey, will you please, we have your son here, would you please come?" My aunt and uncle are freaking out. At this point, they've been searching. And they hear the announcement, but it's not connecting. Then all of a sudden, they stop. It's about the 5th time this is announced. They went, "Wait a minute! That's my sister's name!" And they go to the office. And there's my brother with Jack Hanna and the monkey laughing and playing. You see, lost and found can happen. The spur of the moment, it seems like, in this world. Jesus is telling these parables, these lost and found parables. And I'm not going to rehash the stories. I love the video. It really does a good job of showing us. But what I want to talk about is the lost. Because each one's a little different. We think lost, found, lost, found, lost, found. It's all the same. But really, if you look, it's not. Starts out with the parable of a lost sheep. Now, looking at that sheep, built like many when you think of sheep. Not the rams with the horns and they're vicious and angry. This was just a sheep. Didn't have anything to protect itself. Sheep aren't very fast. So even if they try to run away, every predator you can think of will catch it. And this sheep is now lost and realizes that its life is in danger and is crying out, hoping to be found. And this shepherd of this sheep, he had 100, realized one is lost, said, "I'm going to leave these 99 here where they're fine, and I'm going to find this one," and goes out. Has no clue where to go, but just goes. And at some point, all of a sudden starts hearing the crying of this sheep whose very life is in danger. And the shepherd goes, finds the sheep, picks it up, puts it on his shoulders, and carries it back. And when he gets back, he invites everyone to come and have a party. Let's rejoice, because I found my lost sheep. A sheep that knew it was lost, didn't know where to go, and was crying out with everything. Then in the next parable, you have a story with a coin. I don't have any coins in my pocket. I wish I did. I just don't, but that's okay. Because I can put the coin anywhere, or I can give it to Eli and say, put it somewhere where I don't know where it is. And he puts it there. Here's the thing about the coin. Number one, it doesn't know it's lost. Number two, it doesn't care. Number three, it can do nothing to tell me here I am when I start to look for it. It is just lost. And I love what Jesus does in this parable. He doesn't say, well, then there was a man who earned this who's going to... No, he says there's a woman. Folks, the people, not only are they wondering about a lost coin, they're going, a woman? You're telling a story with a woman in it? Because that's not how you do things. That's not the way this works. But Jesus says, this woman searched high and low and did everything she could to find this coin. Why? This coin was a day's wage. And that day's wage could be the difference between having a home and being homeless, having food and being starving. This coin that couldn't tell you it was lost, didn't care it was lost, and wouldn't say anything, yet this woman was desperate for it. And then you have the story. We call it the prodigal son. Some have decided to change the name, call it the prodigal father. But you have the boy, who's the younger son, who decides, I'm ready to go off on my own. That doesn't sound like a teenager anywhere, does it? Oh my goodness, yes! He goes, I want my inheritance now, which was totally against what it was supposed to be. He's supposed to wait, but he says, I don't want to wait anymore. My guess is I'm reading this, and the thoughts start coming to mind. He's just bored. He's bored with life. He wants to go out and find his own way. And the father doesn't scold him. The father doesn't chastise him. The father says, fine. It's going to be hard for you, but I will give you what you need. This boy who seems smart, who can work, and seems like he should be able to take care of himself, spends all the money, and then a horrible circumstance happens. He has nothing left. And now he has to get a job to go and feed the pigs. And for a Jewish person, this is about as low as it gets. And while he's there, he realizes, if I go home, the servants that my father has, they have extra food. I'm going to go back and I'm going to apologize. And I'm just going to ask to take the role of a servant. I can't ask to be a son anymore. I'm ready to go home and admit my guilt and just be there where things will be available to me that I don't have here. Now, it doesn't say this, but I imagine the father has been waiting. And it's not like a few days or a few weeks. It seems like a few years. The father had been waiting for his son to come home. And I'm going to guess this. I think the father had been praying for his son. For safety. For well-being. And then he's out there where he's watching everything as the working goes on. He looks off down the road. And he sees his son. Now, normally in that circumstance, the father just stands there and says, yeah, now he's going to come and apologize and get what he wants or what he needs. And what he needs is only what I have, and he is going to have to really work hard to earn it. But this father drops everything and runs. And he gets to the boy, and the boy goes down, and he's crying, and he says, I just want to be a servant. I want to just be able to be a hired hand. Can you hire me? And the father doesn't do that. He picks the boys up. He picks him up and hugs him and kisses him and restores him as the son. What an amazing moment. Now, a lot of people say there are 3 lost things in this story. I believe there are 4. Then we find the older son. The older son who stayed home. The older son who has worked for his father. The older son who was smart and loyal. And he sees this brother. He doesn't understand what his dad is doing. He not only gave him the inheritance before he died, now he's coming back and he's restoring him. That's not how this works. This brother of mine should be treated and chastised and just forgotten. You know, I sit here, I wonder though, how angry he is. I don't think this is the first time he's thought about his brother. I think he's been thinking about his brother the whole time he's gone. I think he's angry and maybe even a little jealous that his brother went and did his thing. Yet he was faithful. He was doing what he was supposed to do. He was running the farm. He's making his father get more money. And yet the brother comes home and dad puts him back in his place and restores him. And I don't understand why. I was faithful. I was loyal. I worked hard. But the father reminds him that restoration is necessary. Restoration must happen. Come and join in. And it doesn't seem like the older brother wants to. It seems like he looks at it and thinks, I'm going to still be angry. Because that's what I'm supposed to do. You see, folks, I think about these parables. And here's what I do know. Ladies and gentlemen, I look out at you and I love you. And I'm going to tell you something that applies to me as well. We all were once lost. Every single one of us were once lost. But now we are a found people. But here's the rub. Just because you're found doesn't mean that your work is done. Being found is just the very beginning of it all. For a lot of people, they're found, and they will praise, and they will do things, but they think that's the end of the story. Folks, that's just the very beginning. We are called into service to minister to those who are still lost. We are called to go and share the good news. But here's the thing. The way we do it cannot be the same for everyone. I seem to have this, no, I don't have, but I've watched and I've seen, and there seems to be this idea that all I have to do is this, and I do it the same way to every person every time, and God will eventually work through that. Well, can it happen? Sure. But I think that's the wrong way to approach it. I think when we think all we have to do is the same thing for this person and this person and this person, and maybe one of them will come, that's good enough. I think when I read these parables, I think, but Jesus is telling us there are different situations and different things going on. You have the sheep who calls out, and the sheep knows it needs help. It is completely desperate for help. And the shepherd left all who were home to go and find that one. Folks, I know we come a couple times a week, but I need to tell you this. Sometimes we have to leave this building. And I don't just mean after Sunday morning service or after. I mean, we have to leave this building. This building cannot be the point where we say, this is where ministry takes place. Because I'm telling you right now, ministry taking place here is for us. It's not for the world. We have to leave this building and go find others. And it can be hard. And it can be dangerous. But can I tell you, Jesus had the throne in heaven. Jesus was with the Father. And he left it all behind. Jesus left everything but his love behind to go into the world to where people were crying out and saying, I need help. And Jesus said, I'm here. He left his throne to go and find the lost. They're desperate and they don't know what they need. They are just crying out because they need help. They feel that sense of desperation. But folks, we do know what they need. We know that they need Jesus. And bringing Jesus to them who are calling out, that's a powerful ministry. And then you have the coin. I said the coin doesn't even know it's lost. The coin won't call out. The coin doesn't even care. And folks, there are people in this world that are just like that. Yes, they've heard about Jesus and they know their churches, but they don't care. They think the church is just for people who are not smart enough to know. Or maybe, I have my other things. I don't need Jesus. They don't care. They're not desperate. They think everything's fine. And Jesus encountered people just like that too. Folks, can I tell you, you probably know this, but I'm just going to reinforce it. Those are the hardest people to minister to. It's hard. Because they don't know they need Jesus. They don't care that they need Jesus. They don't think they need Jesus. But folks, here's the truth. They do. And we have to figure out how to be the presence of Jesus in their lives. Because you start talking about Jesus, they're just going to tune you out and they don't care. We have to figure out ways to be able to present Jesus to them that is different. And sometimes that means do not open your mouth. Because once you open your mouth, they're done. Folks, Jesus isn't giving up on them. Jesus hasn't stopped. And neither should we. Those that are hardest are the ones that we're going to have to be better. It means at some point, maybe, yes, we have to talk about Jesus. But to get to that point, we have to show them Jesus before we ever say word one. Then you have the younger son who knows the truth. And many reasons happen where people grow up in the church and they leave. Because they think, there's got to be something better. I've been here. Folks, I have been in this situation. I grew up going to church. And then I got to high school. And I got a car at age 16. Woo! And I had saved up money for insurance. I thought I got the insurance covered because of the money I got from umpiring. Yeah, I got enough money to cover 3 months of insurance. And I thought, wait a minute, I've been doing this for 3 years. And all I can do is cover 3 months? Mom and Dad said, you want the car, you have to help pay for your insurance. Here I am, 16, going, what am I supposed to do? Get a job. Okay. So I went and got a job at Wendy's. And I made enough money that I started working in July, and I made enough money for a couple months to pay for another month or two of insurance. But then school starts. I can't work during the week because I'm involved in activities. Mom and Dad said, well, you have to work on the weekends. My parents were going to church. And I thought, that's all right. I don't need to be in church. I can skip some Sundays. Little did I know that when I said I'll skip some Sundays, I skipped every Sunday. Why? Because I wanted that car. Folks, people leave the church for a variety of reasons. But at some point in their lives, so many of them go, I need a return. My life is not what it should be. My life is not where it should be. I need to get back. And they decide to turn back. And where do they go? They go to the church that they know. And you know what often happens? And I know this for a fact because it happened to me. I come back, you know what the church does? Oh, you're the one that used to come here. You left. What do we need you for? They feel abandoned. They feel like people are just looking at them and judging them. People in the church pews, those who were once lost but have been found, are now looking at one who got lost again. And they're going, you were horrible. Fortunately, it wasn't everybody. And there were some people who surrounded me and got me back. And that's why I'm here today. But I sit here and I go, there are people who are desperate. And you know what their biggest fear is? You. And people like you. Because they don't know what's going to happen. And they're afraid. Folks, what they're looking for is reconciliation. Elijah read the passage from 2 Corinthians this morning, and I want to read it too. He said, it's 2 Corinthians 5, 16 through 21. Now on, therefore, we regard no one from a human point of view. Even though we once knew Christ from a human point of view, we know him no longer that way. So if anyone is in Christ, there is a new creation. Everything old has passed away. See, everything has become new. All this is from God, who reconciled himself to us through Christ, and has given us the ministry of reconciliation. That is, in Christ, God was reconciling the world to himself, not counting their trespasses against them, and entrusting the message of reconciliation to us. So we are ambassadors for Christ, since God is making his appeal through us. We entreat you on behalf of Christ, be reconciled to God. For our sake he made him to be sin who knew no sin, so that we might become the righteousness of God. You are now called to be in the reconciliation business. And folks, none of us deserved it. And God said, I know. I don't care. And sent his son to do it. None of us deserved it. No one deserves it. But through Jesus Christ, they say, we don't care, you don't deserve it. We want you. And when someone has left the church for a while, I don't care how long it's been, and they come back, they're afraid, how are people going to treat me? I'm telling you this right now. What our response is this. You're back. You hug them. Maybe not at this point, but maybe with your words and your actions. You love them. You say, I am so glad to see you. And you work with them to bring them back to God. And then there's the older son. Folks, when I think back, there have been times where I've sat in the chair of the older son more than I care to admit. I don't want that person to receive what's mine. I don't know if that person deserves it. Folks, I know you may be looking at me like I'm weird. But when we're younger, we think things kind of stupidly. It's not we're being mean. We just think differently. Here I am now, 45 years old. And I think back to when I was 23. And I remember there was a friend who I grew up with in the church. And he had left the church. I left the church. I came back. He had not. But his mother and grandmother were still at our church. And they asked him to bring his newborn to church to be dedicated. And they're sitting there and they're going through their emotions, and I am sitting there going, he doesn't even care anymore. He doesn't come to church. Why are we worried about his child? And I thought that. Come to find out, his mom brought that child to church. After I'd left, the child got older. The child still goes to church today. He doesn't, his dad doesn't, but the child does. And this is what I realized. I was the older brother. Well, he didn't come to church. He isn't doing what I'm doing. Why should he get anything? Folks, I'm going to guess. I'm not going to say it's fact. I'm not going to ask you, but I want to guess this. You have done something like that too. You have been the older brother too. This is the danger of a lot of people in church. We lived out in Kansas City. You heard about a church on the news that, and I know it came here, it protested everything. Why? Because they were against homosexuals. Yeah. And I was in Kansas City, so I'd been my undergrad and I was working on my master's degree. And I sat there and I thought, they're so worried about homosexuals that they are protesting at funerals for people who died horrific deaths, for people, they were at cop funerals. They were at funerals for those in the armed services. And I'm going, why are you protesting at these where people gave themselves for us just so you can prove your point that God hates homosexuals? Which, I'm here to tell you, God doesn't. God loves them too. They were being the older brother. And I think about us as a church. You see, These stories are the stories about the lost being found. And we are people who were lost and have been found. And we, number one, never should forget that. We were lost too. And through the blood of Jesus Christ, we have been saved. We were found. We had people who were there for us, praying for us, ministering to us when we didn't even understand it. Folks, our reconciliation is a true reconciliation, but it also means that we must become, and Paul talks about it, and Paul did it, we must become everything to everyone so that we might win some to Christ. That means the one who is lost and desperate, we must be desperate to give them what they need in the hope in Jesus Christ. For the one who left and has come back, we must be desperate to show them the love of Jesus Christ, to reconcile them in the church. To the one who is angry because people leave and come back, we need to show them love, to remind them, you were lost and have been found. Now celebrate that this one has been found. And we need to become somebody different for the ones who don't care, don't worry, and don't need. It doesn't mean we stop. It means we do it in a different way. Why? Because they need it most. They are desperate. They just don't realize it. But if we are doing the same thing for them that we're doing for the one that's like the younger son or the one that's like the sheep, they're going to go, whoa, that's too much. I don't need that. But if you're just there being in the presence of Jesus and they ask you why, you can share the story. And they may not like it. But if you're there for them, the opportunities will come. We must become different things for different people. We, as Paul says, become everything for everyone, because that's going to win some. I look at this, and Jesus wasn't just talking about the lost and found. He was talking to the lost who have been found too. We are the people of God who were once lost and have been found. Folks, Jesus isn't stopping. Jesus isn't quitting. He isn't giving up. He's still going after the desperate, the helpless, the proud, and the stranger. He is going after them desperately. And so should we. We should be desperate. But the truth is, not everybody's going to come. Doesn't mean we stop. Doesn't mean we give up. Doesn't mean we go, well, no, never work. We just got to think of different ways to be the presence of Jesus Christ in their lives for what they need.